Tutankhamun's is the only tomb found in ancient Egypt that remained intact for 3,000 years. It was believed that it was full of gold and artifacts, but at least 13 people who were at the site during the tomb's opening passed away shortly after, and rumor about the curse of the pharaohs spread internationally. Besides that, the researchers examined the mummy and the tomb, and they noticed that everything was quite different from what it was supposed to be. Ancient Egyptians believed that a pharaoh, after his death, would talk to the gods on their behalf or so. The mummification process would be a sacred one, and that's why the mummification process would be handled with the finest care, and tombs were ornamented with great respect. But why did they make an exception for Tutankhamun? Why did Osiris have his fingers severed? And why does Tutankhamun's mummy confuse historians to this day? Why does the tomb also baffle the researchers? Archaeologists Howard Carter and his companion, George Carnarvon, were extremely surprised when they went into the tomb of the king in 1922. Rather than an extravagant and spacious hole, they discovered themselves in a tiny cramped room that resembled a warehouse. The placement of the tomb also brought up some questions, seeing that Tutankhamun was buried quite far from his royal ancestors. This, according to ancient Egyptians, kept the pharaoh from being reunited with his family to lead into the spiritual world. Let's assume that the ancestors' tombs simply ran out of space, but why wasn't there even a coffin for the pharaoh? All the indications point to the theory that Tutankhamun got second-hand attributes. He rests within a nest of 3 golden coffins, which were fitted one inside another, kind of like a Russian doll. They all look like the god of the dead, Osiris, lying on his back and the crook and flail in his arms crossed over his chest. However, the coffin in the middle had a slightly different style, and its face didn't look exactly like the faces on the other 2 coffins. It also didn't look like the face on Tutankhamun's death mask. Egyptologists concluded that among the 3 coffins, the middle coffin as well as some of Tutankhamun's other grave possessions were initially made for the mysterious Egyptian queen, Nefertiti. It turned out that she was an enigmatic ruler whose name is even recorded in inscriptions on the walls. Apparently she lived at the time of Akhenaten, Tutankhamun's father, but died earlier and wasn't able to assert her dominance by herself, and thus had her name lost somewhere in history. Besides that, the undertakers cut off the part of the coffin that stuck out from the sarcophagus, preventing the lid from closing. Later, archaeologists discovered fragments of Osiris's sawn-off toes at the bottom of the sarcophagus. Nothing could change the fact that Tutankhamun had been buried quickly after all archaeologists discovered hints of readjustments everywhere, meaning that the tomb itself was made for some other dignitary, and most probably the pharaoh died suddenly, and no one had time to prepare it. But what was the cause of the pharaoh's death? There are so many of them that it's tough to choose which one played the biggest hand in his death. Tutankhamun was born from 2 siblings, and as you can imagine, he inherited quite a few genetic defects, one of which was congenital clubfoot. He had a limp his entire life, and needed a walking cane to help him move around. 350 gold-plated walking canes with intricately painted things on them were found in his tomb. Besides the clubfoot, he also had a terribly weak immune system. He even suffered from malaria and brittle bones. Specialists discovered malaria in his mummified corpse. In spite of his ailments, the young king enjoyed his time and went for rides on a chariot. Maybe this was why the leg of his mummy is broken, but we're still not sure why there's no heart, since Egyptians never removed this organ, believing it to be the center of a person's mind. King Tut's mummy is generally of low quality because it has a giant incision that no mummy has, stretching all the way from the hip to the belly button. If we put all these facts together and try to figure out how exactly did the young pharaoh die, we would get something like this. The crippled boy pharaoh with a horribly weak immune system went for a ride in his chariot and fell off, but the chariot didn't keep moving straight. Instead, might have turned around and gone right over the king's chest. Because of this, not only his bones were broken, but his heart was crushed too. They tried to deliver his body to morticians as fast as possible, but it started to decompose quicker than they predicted under the scorching Egyptian sun. And so, his tomb just wasn't ready, so he was put in a cramped closet instead. His poor body was barely taken and abruptly mummified in a rush, meaning all rituals had to be forsaken, and the heart spot was stuffed with a handful of scarab beetle amulets. 3,000 years later, archaeologists discovered him, and as an added bonus, removed a skull fragment when taking the poor mummy out of the coffin. It's been said that the curse of the pharaohs is a powerful belief that anyone who dares to disturb a pharaoh's tomb or mummy will be cursed. This widely held belief was sometimes to make everyone respect the sanctity of these tombs in Egypt's Valley of the Kings. Rather than to discourage grave robbers, pharaohs would be buried with a whole load of treasure after all. The list of bizarre accidents doesn't even stop there. On top of everything, Tutankhamun's mummy was on fire. Egyptologist Chris Norton and a crew of forensic scientists carried out a virtual autopsy on the young pharaoh in a Channel 4 television documentary, Tutankhamun, The Mystery of the Burnt Mummy. In it, they further examined the mummy's flesh fragment, and it showed that it had been set on fire or burnt. But it's unlikely anyone would burn the king's body on purpose. Think about it. Ancient Egyptians wouldn't even think of abusing the body of someone who, even after their death, holds their fate in his hands. Besides that, the mummy was burnt while still sealed inside the coffin, so it's quite hard to deny the probability of a supernatural curse under these circumstances. But there's one more thing. It was found that there was a lot of oil and resin on the pharaoh's body. There was so much of it that the mummy had to be scraped off the walls of the coffin. In the documentary, experts demonstrated how a chemical reaction of the embalming oils used on the mummy actually led to spontaneous combustion. Such carelessness during the mummification ritual is unheard of. But what could the cause of death be for the team who opened the coffin? They mostly suffered an unexplainable death. Many believe in the curse of the pharaohs. The scientists and archaeologists who worked on this case included Arthur Mace, radiologist Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, and Carnarvon, whose brother AUDREY Herbert died within a few years after opening the tomb. Howard Carter's pet canary got eaten alive by a cobra too. After them, there was a member of the Egyptian royal family, Prince Ali KAMEL, whose family was shot dead by his wife. Lord Carnarvon, who together with Carter was the first to witness the tomb, also died. But the cursed believers didn't take into account the average age of these scientists, which was 74.5 years. Curse or not, you're pretty close to death no matter what at that age. 57-year-old George Carnarvon died of pneumonia and was generally predisposed to pulmonary disease his whole life prior to opening the tomb. And Howard Carter, who was supposed to be the first to fall victim to the curse, passed away due to natural causes at the age of 64. Then there was Sir Bruce Ingham, Carter's friend. His house mysteriously burned down, not even once, but twice. Ingham received a paperweight that was made from a mummified hand. Its wrist had a scarab bracelet marked with the words, "Cursed be he who moves my body. To him shall come fire, water, and pestilence." No one has an explanation for this besides maybe unseen forces at work or just bad luck. 16 years after the tomb's opening, finally, experts pointed out that the concept of a curse didn't exist in Egyptian religious practices. A large number of people involved in other tomb openings never suffered any mystical powers at all. It looks like in Tutankhamun's story, there was room for both a curse and accident, apart from the fact that scientists have still not fully unveiled the mystery of his death. That's a wrap for this video. What do you think? Is the curse of the pharaohs real, or is it just a legend made up to keep out grave robbers? Leave a comment down below and let us know what you think. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and we'll see you in the next one.